check out what I'm playing right here. Right there, I was just playing a bunch of different intervals. Many times, new guitarists can get stuck with what they're practicing. We've all been there, practicing the same old thing and almost feeling like you're kind of getting nowhere. Now, when this is the case, oftentimes we just need a little perspective shift or to focus on a different aspect of music. When this happens to my students, one of my favorite things to recommend is tip number 1, the study of intervals. Now, generally speaking, common intervals that we play are thirds, fourths, fifths, and also sixths. But there's many more than that, and the study of intervals can go deep. So later in this video, we'll go over how intervals and chords are related, so make sure and stick around. In many ways, it's like studying the building blocks of music. They give us a whole new perspective on everything that we've already learned thus far. Now, at its most basic definition, an interval is the distance between two notes. So that means this is an interval. Also this one. Also this one. Every distance between two notes is some kind of interval. So you'll find many tried and true advanced musicians talking at great length about them. This is because they've studied them in and out, hence the perspective shift I mentioned earlier. These little building blocks are incredible for opening up possibilities on our instrument. Okay, now a quick side note. To find more in-depth lessons on not only intervals, but complete beginner to advanced guitar learning, click the link in the description below for a free ultimate beginner guide that includes an essential chord chart, a practice plan, a walkthrough of some beginner pitfalls to avoid, plus a whole lot more. All right, now back to the lesson. Okay, now my second tip also relates back to intervals, and it's to understand how the guitar is tuned. So learning this concept early on is going to help with some common guitar confusion that happens to the best of us. Now to do this, we need to know a little bit about intervals, specifically fourths and thirds. Now the guitar, when in standard tuning, which is the most common tuning for guitar, is going to be tuned like this. Now from the 6th string or the lowest string to the A string, that's the interval of a fourth. Same from A to D, that's a fourth. D to G, that's also a fourth. Now from G to B, this is the one we got to look out for. This is a third. More specifically, it's a major third. Okay, we're going to pin this because a lot of confusion can happen here. And then finally, from B to high E, we go back to a fourth. So we have fourth, 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 third, and fourth. Now that one idiosyncrasy of difference from fourths to thirds is what can cause a lot of confusion. But knowing this can help. So let's take a look at some thirds and fourths on the 5th fret of the guitar so that we can get more perspective. Sometimes it's hard to see these open notes, so we take them up the fretboard, see them clearly. Okay, so if I was to fret on the 5th fret, low E to A, this is what a fourth interval looks like. Now I can also use the major scale, and we'll play it up just so we can hear it. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, so that's a fourth. Let's try this from A to D. Here's our root. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's a fourth there. Same thing here, D to G. That's going to be a fourth. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, now here from G to B, that's where that major third is going to happen. So we're only going to climb 3 notes of the major scale. 1, 2, 3. Right there. So instead of 4 notes, we play 3 notes. And then finally, from B to high E, we go back to playing a fourth. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's hear all that one more time. Okay, now knowing this info early on can help with confusion on chord shapes, scales, and so forth. Because the guitar is such a shape-based instrument, knowing these kinds of specific quirks or idiosyncrasies can really go a long way with speeding up learning. Hey, now if you're enjoying Guitar Tricks, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss a new video. And hit that like button, it really helps us out. Now back to the lesson. Okay, my last tip here, also involving intervals, is to learn how chords and intervals are related. Now, to say it more plainly, chords actually are multiple intervals that are stacked together. So if you understand all of the intervals, you'll in turn have a much better understanding of how chords work. Let's break apart a C chord for an example. Okay, so a C is made up of 3 notes, C, E, and G. C, E, and G. Now C to E, that's a major third interval. E to G, that's a minor third interval. And C to G, that's a perfect 5th interval. Now a major chord actually equals a major third interval with a minor third stacked on top. So that combination of intervals gets you a major chord. Now if we change major third to a minor third on the bottom, then we get a major third stacked on top. It switches and we get a minor chord. So we take those two intervals, and if we flip-flop them, it's the difference of a major chord and a minor chord. Okay, so let's go back to a major chord. Now, if we take the third, the major third, and we raise it, so from a third to a fourth, play the 5th along with it, this is how you get a sus4. So we have a root, a 4th, and a 5th with no third. Okay, now these are just a few examples of how you can alter triads, and hopefully you can see a little about where this is going. You get a deeper understanding of chord shapes that you already know, and then in turn, knowing eventually how to alter them in a way that you need. Okay, for example, if you have an A chord, if you understand the intervals and the functions, you can make it an A sus4 or an A sus2. Or you can learn how to alter bar chords. If you have a G, if you want to add a note here, you could have an add 9, or you could add a note here and have a G6 chord. All of these things and ways to alter the shape is what you get when you know the intervals. Now, not to mention a more comprehensive understanding of how scales and arpeggios are built as well. Okay, I hope you're excited to maybe incorporate some interval study into your practice. There's a wealth of great interval lessons on the Guitar Tricks platform. Go check them out. Also, be sure to enter your email for a free beginner guitar guide linked in the description, or you can find it on the next screen.